Some of you here are old enough to remember the 1970s television show Kung Fu, ABC, 1972-75. Remember that? I remember it from reruns. Nothing personal, just... The main character of the series, Kwai Chang Caine, is played by David Carradine. And Kwai Chang is the orphan son of an American man and a Chinese woman. And as a boy, he comes to study martial arts and wisdom at a Shaolin temple. His master is blind. "You cannot see," the boy says when he meets the master for the first time. "You think I cannot see," says the master. "Of all things," says the boy, "to live in darkness must be the very worst. Fear," says the master, "is the only darkness." Later in the scene, the master instructs the boy, "Close your eyes, boy. What do you hear?" "I hear the water. I hear the birds," says the boy. "Do you hear your own heartbeat?" says the master. "No." "Do you hear the grasshopper, which is at your feet?" And the boy looks down and sees the grasshopper. He is amazed. "Old man, how is it that you hear these things?" says the boy. "Young man," says the master, "how is it that you don't?" And from then on, the master calls the boy Grasshopper as a term of affection. This week's Torah portion offers us several grasshopper lessons that are even older than Kung Fu. Here's the context for this week's Torah portion. God tells Moses to send scouts to go and spy out the land of Canaan, to check it out, to see what the land is like, what its produce is, and what the people are like. Are the cities fortified or not? Are the people strong or not? And 12 spies are sent out, one from each tribe of Israel. 10 spies come back with a negative report. Agriculturally speaking, they tell Moses and the Israelites, the land is great. It flows with milk and honey. However, the inhabitants of the land are fierce, and their cities are well fortified, and there are even giants there. Caleb, one of the 2 spies who brings a more hopeful report, tries to calm the people down, and he tells them, "We should go up at once and possess the land, for surely we are able to do so. We can do it," he says. "Alo na'aleh ve'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchal la." But the spies, the 10 spies who gave the evil report, they respond by saying, "Lo nuchal," no, we can't do it. For they, the people in the land of Canaan, are stronger than we. Ki chazaku mimenu. And then, after just praising the land, after just saying that it was a land flowing with milk and honey, they now spread lies about the land, calling it a land that devours its inhabitants. Eretz ochelet yoshveha hi. And then perhaps the most devastating part of the whole story, the 10 spies say that when they scouted the land, they came across the Nephilim, the fallen ones who were descendants of the giants. And they said, "In our own eyes, compared to these giants, we were like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes as well. V'nihi ve'einenu kachagavim v'chein hayinu be'eineihem." So here are the 3 lessons of the grasshopper. The first lesson I've actually already shared with you, and it comes ultimately not from the Torah and not even from Kung Fu. It actually comes from Lao Tse, the great Chinese philosopher who taught approximately 2,500 years ago. Doing research for my talk tonight, I discovered that the writers of Kung Fu based many of the aphorisms of the series from the teachings of Lao Tse, and this is one of them. There are many kinds of darkness. The master may be blind, but he can see many things that the student cannot. The spies who go out into the land see many things, but what ultimately do they understand? Lesson number 1, young grasshoppers. There are many ways of knowing, many ways of seeing, many ways of apprehending, and many ways of sensing. Lesson number 2 comes from the Midrash. Our Torah portion says, in our own eyes we were like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes as well. Says the Midrash, I take no objection to your saying, in our own eyes we were like grasshoppers. But I do take offense when you say, and so we were in their eyes as well. How do you know, says God, how I made you look to them? You thought you looked like grasshoppers, but maybe I had them see you as if you were angels. Kemalachim, it says in the Midrash. And so here's the lesson, the second lesson of the grasshopper. We mustn't allow our fears to paralyze us. It's natural for the scouts to be afraid. They're a group of former slaves who are commanded to go out and conquer a land that they know to be filled with fortified cities and fierce men. Of course they're going to be afraid. And sometimes we do feel like grasshoppers, small and insignificant creatures that people might barely notice. The spies, though, are certain that the Canaanites actually see them as grasshoppers. They let their fears get the better of them. Maybe, as the Midrash suggests, the Canaanites saw them as angels, maybe as holy men, or perhaps as fierce and clever warriors. Maybe they were frightened of these scouts who could be representing a giant army, which in fact they are, who are somewhere outside of the land. So it's okay to be afraid, young grasshoppers. But as the Midrash suggests, fear is a type of darkness that must be managed. The final lesson, lesson number 3, comes from the great Hasidic master Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, who lived in the 19th century. He turns this Midrash that I just shared on its head, which was one of his favorite things to do. He liked to take teachings and texts and perspectives and shift everything. The Midrash asks how the spies could have known how they were seen to others. How do you know, said the Midrash, how they saw you? But the Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Mendel, is upset that the spies should even care how they are seen by others. When the spies say, and so we were in their eyes as well, the Kotzker Rebbe replies, what's with this? What do you care how you appear in the eyes of others? They see you as grasshoppers. They see you as angels. What difference does it make, says the Kotzker? The important question is not how others see us and not even how we see ourselves. The important question is, who are we? How are we? And are we becoming who we are meant to be? That's the important question. Are we good? Are we kind? Are we generous? Are we growing? If others see us as those things and we're not really those things, what have we accomplished? Will we have fooled God? Will we even have fooled ourselves? As a contemporary rabbi, Stephen Kushner, puts it, their sin, seen from this perspective, wasn't simply that they had lost faith or that the scouts had misrepresented what they had seen. Their failure wasn't even that they had low self-esteem, that they saw themselves as grasshoppers. For this, they could be forgiven. Rather, it was their preoccupation with how others saw them that was their sin. Now, luckily, we don't live in a town that cares very much about outward appearances. Just checking to see if you were still awake. Checking to see. So this might very well be, lesson number 3 might very well be the most important lesson that we can take with us. It's not how others see us or even how we see ourselves. It's who we are that really matters. And this is the third lesson for all the young grasshoppers out there. Worry less about how others see you and more about who you are and about who you are capable of becoming. One last lesson that's really about right now, about this place and about this moment. There is in this world much of which to be afraid. Escaped felons and dwindling water supplies, nuclear proliferation, rising anti-Semitism around the world and on college campuses, racism. This past month's report that I was just reading today, that the number of homeless people in our city has increased 12% in the last 2 years. The list goes on and on. There's lots to be afraid of. But there's an even bigger list. A list so big that it makes the list I just shared with you look like a little tiny grasshopper. It's a list of the things in this world which give us hope and strength, like our 3,000 plus year old tradition of wisdom and learning, or our community right here, and communities just like this across the Jewish world. Our Jewish belief that better days are ahead of us, not behind us. These doctors and these nurses who are here with us tonight, who bring healing and hope into our lives and into the lives of our loved ones. Our tikvah, our hope that our world can be perfected, that it will be perfected, and that we can do something to make the world better, to make the world more loving, more peaceful, more just. The list goes on and on and on. And so when we're afraid, let it be Caleb's voice that we hear when we close our eyes, telling us, Alo na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchal la. We can do it. We can be more. We can sense more. We can know more. We can love more. We can. Shabbat shalom.